Hello and welcome back to the pad for some post-race analysis. Joining me again is Oliver Askew. Ollie, I want to go into some of the key moments from the full race day today, including quali. So let's start with what was a very, very, very wet qualifying indeed. You can see here, miserable, more umbrellas than a Mary Poppins convention. And then we have this. I mean, just look how wet that is. This is driver's eye. I mean, you can barely see out of it. What's this like as a driver?
No, it's as you see, it's just like the halo. In this picture, it looks very intrusive, but if you just look past all of that and focus your vision into the apex and on the car in front of him, a lot of that just goes to the back of your mind. All of these distractions here.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is just Mitch Evans running wide, just to show you how little grip there was in this session. But this next clip is really the key controversial point of the session. We'll let it run through before going back. Now, let's go back, because this is where Nick Cassidy got his lap taken away from him, his dual lap.
Yeah.
And if we play it through in slow motion, I just want to draw the attention of everybody watching to here on his screen. As we go frame by frame, you see him go down, activate a button for his full power, 350 kilowatt. It will show it on the screen. There we go, he presses it and the screen changes, push 350.
Yeah.
That is a very normal thing to happen in a session. Why did he get penalised?
Because he did this before the Sector 3 timing line. So before he made it to Sector 3, and the rule states that you can only change to 350 before you start your duels lap in Sector 3. So he maybe wasn't aware of that, or thought there was a loophole in the rules. Possibly, maybe, I don't know, wanted that extra power to put some more heat in the rear tires. Not sure. At the end of the day, it ruined his qualifying, but not a big deal because he went on to win the race.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course, that extra 3 points, to acquire pole position means a lot at the end of the championship, especially with how close this championship is. But yeah, a learning moment for him.
So why would that rule exist? Is it because of an unfair advantage by being able to carry more speed into a hot lap?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know why it exists. It doesn't change much. In this situation, yeah, like I said, you might be able to use that extra power to put heat into the rear tires, but that's the only thing I could think of.
Interesting. Okay, well, this next bit I want to show you is the final duel of the two Abt Cupra drivers together. Here is just before Nick Cassidy getting told of his deleted lap time and not being very happy about it. And now we have a very, very wet final in the qualifying duels between the two Abt Cupra drivers. Now, the real talking point is, I should say, the tyres. Because there's a really interesting story here, isn't there, with the fact that Abt Cupra as a team, or Abt as a team, plus Nico Müller, plus Robin Freins, have all worked together for a very, very long time in DTM, a championship also supplied by the hand-cooked tyres. So, Ollie, I want you to tell me how much information or how much experience can you get from racing on a tyre for that long?
Well, obviously it shows having an absolutely dominant qualifying session with both of these team Abt Cupra cars. In the wet, we say it's the great equalizer, but when you have past experience with these tires and understanding how to switch them on, understanding how much wheel angle that they can take in the corners, little things like this, and how much the car can move within that slip angle in the wet, it's completely different to the dry. It's a very it's a very, how do I say it? It's not very confidence inspiring when you go out there with a very hard tire like this Hankook tire.
Sure.
Hankook is in a wet condition that's also very cold. So a lot of different variables being thrown at these guys, but obviously they came out on top, and that experience certainly helps.
So this is a combination not just of driver experience in the wet, but also how the team can build a better car or set up a better car for them. And as we saw, this was a great duel and a great moment for the Abt Cupra team to get, at this point with Robin's pole position, their first points of the season.
Yeah, and when you have such a short FP3 in the wet heading straight into qualifying, it's that past experience that then makes a difference. So if we had all day, an open session with all these teams running in the wet, they'd eventually close that gap. But in such a short time period, it's not possible.
So on that, do you think that if we had a wet race in Monaco, we'd see a different result in qualifying? Would other teams learn enough to bridge the gap now?
Sure. I mean, that data is already being run through immediately after the race. I would expect that these guys would be very competitive and the team to beat in the wet, because they absolutely dominated today. But that gap to the cars behind would certainly close.
So it might be the last time we see celebrations like this for a while. Not good for
I hope
Cooper.
not. I like rooting for the underdogs, and this team not too long ago was not an underdog. They were winning races in Formula E. So I'm sure they're going to be back to their winning ways here shortly.
Well, let's see. Only time will tell. Now, the next clip is we're going to look at Nick Cassidy's build, his journey to where he got his win. We're starting here where this is 20, if you just look at the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see lap 23 out 40. Nick Cassidy is in 6th place, but he decides to go for a little move around the outside, and what happens was he doesn't just make it 1 places, he makes up 3, because if we stop there, we are seeing him overtake this driver, and this driver to tuck in behind Jean-Eric Vergne.
Yeah.
And I believe that is Pascal Wehrlein in the lead at the time. He makes that look very, very, very easy. He tucks in there just behind Jean-Eric Vergne. He's up on energy at this point. He told me at the end of the race their strategy was to save, and then push, get into the lead, and then maybe do a switcheroo, like we've seen so far this season.
Yeah.
And this is a position where he uses that extra energy to get into the lead, taking Jean-Eric Vergne first, and then a few laps later making the move on Pascal Wehrlein. So here's the move on Jean-Eric Vergne. Pretty tight there. There's one bit I want to just stop and look at, because you can see, tell me, let's just go back a little bit, what is Jean-Eric Vergne trying to do here? Is he trying to force Cassidy to go much wider and try and tuck in beside?
As soon as any of these cars has half a car in front or has an axle in front of the other, you're then in control of the corner, right? So Nick Cassidy here is in control. He's never going to be pushed out wide, right? Because he has control of his front axle and the steering angle. And so right now he's just crowding Jean-Eric Vergne, understanding that the next corner is a left-hander. He'll then have the inside, and then he'll take 2nd place. So this sequence of corners was very, very interesting during the race. Through turn 1, where you place your car kind of dictated if you were able to make the pass or not through this complex.
Okay.
Just based on how far along that car you were. So if Nick was, directly next to Jev, or just a little bit further behind, it's then in his best interest to not put the car in a vulnerable position, as we saw yesterday with Stoffel Van Dorn and Ticktum. It's just not worth the risk in that situation, right? So just small contact to these walls can end your day.
Well, there we go, and he did manage to avoid that risk, get the position, and then go on to make another position against what was Pascal Wehrlein at the time. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the next clip is going to be a bit later on in the race, where Nick Cassidy is leading. So this is the move on Pascal Wehrlein, gets that done, and he's leading from this point. A lot of stuff changes behind him at this stage. So if we just stop there, you've got Jake Dennis as Jean-Eric Vergne. As we know, this is how the race ended. But interestingly, Nick told me at the end of the race that he was almost desperate for people to overtake him, because they'd consumed a lot to get to the lead, and he didn't understand why people weren't overtaking him.
Right.
And he sort of became very beneficial of someone that didn't really want to take any risk because of the recent race results he's had.
Right.
So he was able to push ahead, save, and not really have a challenge from the back.
Right.
Which is rare, especially for what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, in this current situation, if you're going to pick anybody to have behind you, fighting you for the win, it's probably Jake, like you said, knowing his recent finishes, not wanting to risk anything. He even said that over the radio when his team was telling him to go for the pass. Relaying back, hey, maybe this isn't our race today. Settle in for P2, which is eventually what they did. So everyone on the grid within the top 10 was saving so much energy in the beginning that they were to use it all at the end, and so the battery management strategy became much faster at the end of the race. So shorter coast periods, which makes it difficult to overtake.
Right.
And so the lap time much quicker at the end. They were almost we should say it's become a flat out race, which it basically had. become a flat-out race at this point. So making it more difficult for Jake to overtake.
And at that point, with a flat-out race, these cars and these drivers are so close when you take the energy management out of it that it's very hard to overtake.
And then it looks like traditional open wheel racing.
Yep.
Right. So where you don't see that many passes, and that's the beauty of Formula E. When we are in big energy-saving moments in the race, you see those overtakes happen almost effortlessly.
Very well said. There's one last bit of analysis I want to go into, probably the most important bit, and that is this
bit right here.
Because if we just stop here, focus on that, that is an exceptionally good champagne technique.
Very good.
We've got about quarter-inch cover of the champagne
good
hole.
Compression.
We've got good compression. We've got an even spray there. It's pretty much textbook as far as champagne sprays go. Have you seen a better one this season?
Yeah, good leverage off the forearm here, almost 90-degree angle. Focusing down the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that he's done this a few times.
He's done this a few times indeed. And then if you look here, there's one last bit of analysis we'll do. This final shot of the entire race weekend. Nick Cassidy's got his win. He's spraying champagne, and really, this is an absolutely flawless grip of a trophy. That trophy's going nowhere, Oliver Askew.
No, he must be right-handed.